In September 2012, and I specifically want to talk about this one, at the time we were just getting started with the construction of the Hotel Convention Center. Dr. Patel starts playing with this idea of a water park. And he starts moving faster than we were moving. And he's pushing two projects at the same time. I mean, that's pretty significant in my mind to do that. But anyway, we bought 3.5 acres roughly for land that was going to be used for parking. And Dr. Patel bought the land north of that tree line you see at the back from the Womacks, and we were going to use we were going to buy that land for public parking and the water park. Now, the price was $295 and per square foot, which we agreed to, and that's what I took to the board for approval. About now the day of the vote, within say 15 minutes of me walking upstairs, Dr. Patel's father came in and said, "No, you got the price wrong. It's $350, 50 cents more, 50 cents more a foot." And prior to the meeting, just to make sure everybody knows this, prior to the meeting, I asked Mayor Smith to come out of that meeting, and he hadn't yet, started the meeting, but I was out in the hallway and I signaled to him to come out there, and I said to him that the price was not $295, it was $350, and he asked me, I'm talking about Mayor Smith, he asked me what I thought, and my statement was very clear. If the city wants the water park, then we're going to have to pay that price. He asked me that, what I thought, and I basically said that we're going to have to, if we want the park, we're going to have to pay the additional 50 cents, and that's how that price got taken care of. But the board approved it on September the 4th, 2012, and unanimously. Now we get into some other land issues, and if any of you have been out to the park, you see land out there where it looks like looks like a nasty pond right now. Have you seen that out there? Well, anyway, that pond is what we call lots 5 and 6, and so in September as well, we conveyed 1 acre of land to the investor at the water park at no cost. Now, why did we do that? Because that land was given to us to the north of the pond for drainage purposes by the Womacks, Jay Womack, and his operations. And it was for basically drainage. Dr. Patel came to me after further research. What we were going to do is put a water structure on our land where that big pond is. We couldn't put a water structure over it because that part of the drainage basin didn't have the PSI of the land to hold the structure. So I went to the board and said lot 7 that was given to us by the Womacks, that we tested the PSI there, and that it could still be used for drainage, but it could also put a structure on it. The reason we conveyed it to Dr. Patel at no cost is because it didn't cost us anything, and number 2, that he would put $1 million structure out there over it. And to me, that sounded like a good deal for us. And the other point why we didn't want to own that lot with his structure on it is because then we'd be assuming a lot of great liability for allowing to do it. So we just said it's easier for us to give you land that we didn't pay for, and you put the structure on it. And that's what that's all about. Anyway, we felt this was a wise move. The board did approve it, but there's another thing that I want to bring up. In this city, you go back to 1981 to 1984, this city has a history of donating land, city-owned land. Our problem was we should have sold it to Dr. Patel for $10. And that was the only thing that didn't make it look right. Instead of giving it to him, we should have sold it to him for 10. But back in 1981 to 84, we donated land for economic development, and the city turned over 109 acres of land to who? What ultimately became the Four States Fair Association. So we used land for economic development purposes, significant amount of land out there to get the Four States Fair Association. Now it was called something else then, but that's what it was. And the mayor then was Bobby Ferguson. And I think he did the right thing then. And I still do. And the next area we'll just go to, and it's an issue that we clearly do not agree with, but you know, from time to time, jump in if you want. But reference is made to in the report. It's, I think, you need to put another tape or something in there?
No, I've got one through her.
Oh, okay, good.
We've got a lot of tapes.
Okay. Number 4 looks like a significant issue. It says inadequate documentation, $4.14 million for construction. And there was a letter, as I stated in the letter to Jimmy Locke, who is one of the people with in the Investigative Audit Division. It was dated October 18, 2013. It was always my intent that the company would draw money during the construction phase, and everything would be reconciled at the end of the project. Both these two projects are monumental, and I do not have a better method of doing it that way. Reconcile it to the end. We are still ongoing with these two projects. But I think that we did the proper thing. One other thing about it is that when Dr. Patel was getting his bank financing, both on the water park and the convention center and the hotel, what had to happen is that we had to put up our money first before the bank would release money on the loans. So we were a very important partner in this thing. And but anyway, it was always our intent that the investor would submit draws during the construction phase, and everything would be reconciled at the end. Each payment the investor, each payment to the investor's company was properly documented. It was either a draw or it was an invoice. And each draw request from the investor clearly showed exactly how the funds would be used. And as I stated in this letter to Jimmy Locke, on the 10th of December, the investor was given approval to bid a project as one. That's in my heads of agreement. In other words, Dr. Patel had to go out and get 3 bids because the reason we were bidding it as one project is because there's no way that we could be doing things at the same time he was doing things, because the convention center sits right where the hotel sits and then where all the parking ultimately would be. So if you're gonna do the earthwork and all that kinds of stuff, then you're gonna have to do it that way, and you get better pricing. Probably if we had bid this project ourselves, we'd have been paying 2 or 3 times what we pay I don't know why it's that way. You think government would have a better discount. It's not true. You get better discounts through competition in the private sector. So a lot of people had some questions about that, and I don't know how anybody could do the project differently. In fact, when I was meeting with the investigative audit group, their guy, that's their legal guy, said that when he started this project, he couldn't figure it out. And in the end, he said he didn't see any other way we could pull the project off. And I agree. I've handled multiple projects involving electric utilities, and I'm here to tell you, you have not only the contractors, but you have consulting engineers and everything like that, and it gets to be a very elaborate process. At times, it almost slows the project down. What we have, and you'll see it in the documentation, when you look at, that would be issue 3, we call it, you'll see significant documentation on things that were put together, and it's my understanding that we sent that stuff to them
when they originally submitted the request for these items, we were sent to them then, and then also I sent a portion of the documents again to Jimmy on Monday.
Okay, so we've sent this information to them twice, and I mean, we really have a beef about not having this documentation. They've got the documentation, but they wouldn't put it where you could see the letter. Like you'll see our letter, but the documentation for the detail for which they're saying is inadequate, that's been submitted to them 2 times. So we feel that that inadequate documentation thing is absolutely not correct. Issue 4, duplicate reimbursement. I don't know if using a square peg in the hole it will get it here, but really they've said that we double paid an invoice, and we never paid a double invoice. What we did do is paid on 2 different invoices, but it wasn't over the $44,000.
No, sir. The confusion came where there was one specific invoice that had 3 different items on them. Because the items were related to different incentives, they had to be paid out of 2 separate funds. So 2 items were paid on one check. Another item was paid on another check. And they're saying that the one particular item for $44,614 was paid on both checks, when in turn it was not. It was only paid on one specific check. And that documentation was provided to Mr. Locke to verify that information.
Okay. Did he verify it?
He still insists that it was a duplicate payment, but the reconciliation clearly shows that it was not.
Who is
Okay.
Mr. Locke? Just for those of us who are unfamiliar.
I'm sorry, he is an auditor with the Legislative Audit Committee.
And what's his first name?
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Yeah.
And is he the one that wouldn't accept the documents that you're talking about you wanted in this?
The 44,000?
No, the documents, in addition to your letter, the documents.
No, I
you say
don't think he
are
had
pertinent.
anything to do with it. I think the problem, Becky, is that when I first met with him, when I came back in October, maybe I should have paid more attention to their process, but I think it was me and, it was me and Jessica.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that met with them. And so a few weeks, 6 weeks go by, and then they're back again and saying, okay, you've got to Wednesday to get everything together. And I think a lot of the documentation that we're talking about was previously submitted to Mr. Locke. And we've got the proof in everything that we have right here. And I don't know, I still don't understand what they're talking about, but we can prove $4.2 million. And not only that, we can prove that Dr. Patel's got about $10 million in this project of his own money, you know. But anyway, the fifth item, and the fifth item is waiver of building permit fees. Well, I'd do it again, because on the right projects, you need to do it. And I'll give you, I don't know if I'll probably am getting ahead of myself, but I might as well say it. The Arkansas Economic Development Commission is the big organization that we really have relationships with. That's very important. And they, from time to time, we compete with other cities across the state for different kinds of economic development. And two of them, and I can't remember where it is in the rest of this thing that I have here, but two of them was Project Links and Project Coyote. Now, why they had those names on them, they're code names, to not be able to disclose to the public what the project is. But I'll say now, after the fact, one of them was a jet manufacturer that would have built jets out at our airport. And that was, I thought, the one that we'd really get, because we have virtually unrestricted airspace above our airport, superb for flight test. And then we had Project, Links. And Links was a parts manufacturer for jet engines. And same thing. We do have the documentation in here from those two, but I'm required to provide confidentiality to AEDC on all this information, and I have to make the decision on the spot. It's always subject to final board approval, but when I have to make these things, particularly on projects like that, I have to offer water. If I had land, you know, we had land available, we might have to do that. Other types of incentives, run utilities to the site, or provide any kind of funding like Act 9 bonds. Act 9 bonds are bonds that we can legally issue. It's sort of a leaseback arrangement, but they're issued in our name. They're leased back, and once they're paid off, you know, they own the property, but it's in our name until the property is paid off. These are significant economic tools that we have. So, waiving building permit fees, I think I did the right thing. And I don't know too many city managers in the country that don't have the power to do that. Anyway.